Thanks for watching Numbskull News. And so today I'm trifling around YouTube, checking some things out, and I happen to see there's Locked On Big 12, and I'll be damned if old Bomber Brown from Big 12 Mafia is on. Now I love Big 12 Mafia. It's a great show, great show. It's got the before mentioned Bomber and of course, the great immaculate Moen, who's oftentimes funny, and Wild Ute. I like him, and for being a Utah guy, I like him, and I like Drake Toll from the Locked On Big 12. So all good, right? So I'm like, all right, let's check this out, and craziness ensues. I mean, start talking about Clemson in Miami to the Big 12. Now, let me start this thing off more of a positive thing. Miami, I always considered Miami a bit of a pipe dream, and I'll get to it a little bit later in this video, but I think there's an actual chance that Miami ends up in the Big 12 or part of a Big 12 ACC merger. So I'm good with that. But Clemson, I got a problem with that. There's this new narrative out now that it's UNC, it's NC State, or Virginia that are the most sought after schools. And that's just crazy. That's crazy. I know it's big time media people saying this shit. So in a way, I don't really blame Balmer that much. He's kind of going off of what's being written by big national people, and I just think that's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd to think that Clemson's going to get left out of the Big Ten or SEC. And look, I get it. I've been wrong many times. Uh, Usually, when everybody's going one way, my natural thing is to want to go the other way. All right, I'm a contrarian. Naturally, that's what I am, and I embrace it. Screw it. I don't have to be like everybody else. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be me and have my own thoughts. But I'm not always wrong, people. I'm more than willing to come out here and say when I'm a dumbass and I get something wrong. And I don't spend time gloating on what I got right. But I just want to tell you guys I'm not always wrong. When we found out that Texas and Oklahoma was leaving the Big 12, my first thought was, well, is the Pac safe? I mean, why wouldn't USC do the same thing? Why wouldn't they, probably not the SEC, but why not the Big Ten? They're worth a hell of a lot of money. And sure enough, that's what happened a year later. Now, I made one comment on one video. I don't have to stamp my feet every week about being right on that. But I did get that right. I did get something else right. About, I say anywhere between a year ago and about 10 months ago, still kind of early on, in the last off season, and all the realignment thing was the hot shit everyone was talking about. And I mean, the big national writers, everybody, big time TV personalities talking about, the SEC and the Big Ten. Who knows how many teams they get up to, how big those conferences get. They go to 24, they go to 28, 30. And I just thought that was ridiculous. Like, why would the SEC expand a ton? Why would the Big Ten want to expand a ton more? And I said then, and I continue to say now, I could see the Big Ten getting to 20 teams. I could maybe see the SEC getting to 18. I don't think they'll ever get to 20. I'll be surprised if they do. All right, there's a shot they get to 20. I'll be surprised if they do. And now, where is the big national media? What are they saying? They're saying, well, the Big Ten is probably going to get to 20 and then stop. Shocking. Now the big national media, you know what they're saying about the SEC? Oh, the SEC it really isn't interested in expanding any further past 16. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But they're starting to sound a whole hell of a lot like me for the past 10, 12 months. So they're not always right. They don't bat 1,000. Now they have a high. Now I will say a lot of the big time media guys, the guys who write articles and have all the sources all over the place, that they have a high batting average. There's no doubt. So if you go with the chalk, more times than not, that'll be correct, or some version of that will be correct. But under no circumstances will I ever believe that Clemson will be coming to the Big 12. And I am a Big 12 homer. I have my Big 12 bias. I wear it on my sleeve. Don't give a damn what anyone thinks about it. I love my conference, but come on. Clemson. Nobody wants Clemson. It makes no sense. Because Clemson, well, Florida State first, then Clemson, they're making the most noise about getting out of the ACC. You think they're making that noise to come to the Big 12? You think they're making that noise because they have no landing spot? You got to be out of your damn mind. And according to Greg Flugar, and I believe him, that ESPN is a little bit more involved than they've been before. They were pretty hands off as far as the Four Corners coming to the Big 12 or anything about Oregon and Washington, but they're a little more hands on with this. And I don't believe they're hands on for Virginia. I have a hard time believing UNC. Now, everybody, including Greg Flugar, is talking about UNC being the number one pick of the SEC and the Big Ten. I have my doubts, and I've shared my doubts about that forever. It makes no sense because everything that I've learned about realignment, there's different reasons for different schools. I have to say that. Absolutely correct. USC got into the Big Ten not for the same reasons as UCLA. UCLA partially was so they could own the entire market, which is the second largest market in the country. And also, they wanted that Rose Bowl to be part of the Big Ten. Now, maybe they don't get the actual bowl game, but maybe down the line they will. But what they do have is UCLA, who plays in the Rose Bowl, which is a prestigious, legendary freaking stadium. I think there is something to they wanted that in the Big Ten. All right, they wanted that history. They wanted the mythology of that place in the Big Ten. So there were multiple reasons for UCLA, not to mention a huge blue blood basketball brand. There's a myriad of different reasons depending on the school. But overwhelmingly, the reason for realignment are matchups. Premium matchups that get big boffo ratings. All right, Florida State. Let's just say Florida State in the SEC. There's a number of big matchups you can get with that every year that would get insane ratings. Same thing with Clemson. UNC, there's no premium matchup in the SEC for them. There's not. Now, basketball, UNC versus Alabama basketball, that's a premium matchup because Alabama has turned that switch and they're really, really good at basketball. But football, no. Virginia, where is the premium matchup that the SEC and ESPN cannot wait to get their hands on them to provide matchups featuring Virginia? No, that doesn't exist. That's why I don't believe that bullshit. You just got to put your logic hat on a little bit. Now, that's where I do blame Mr. Balmer a little bit. I'm like, come on, man. Don't drink that national Kool-Aid. There's no way in hell Clemson is left behind by the SEC. Now, this is the part we're going to get to where Miami has a shot at the Big 12 of getting, or we have a shot, I should say, of getting them. And I'm pretty well convinced now that the Big 10, they will eventually get to 20, possibly. But one of those members, the 19th or 20th team, they're saving that spot for Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame just re-upped with NBC. But when that deal is up, see, they're willing to wait, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. The Big Ten is going to wait. There's no point in filling the slot because there's no other team that can give them what Notre Dame can give them. So they'll wait. They're not going to fill that spot with Virginia. No, ain't happening. I think if they had a shot at Florida State, that could be the 19th or 20th team, whichever, whichever. But they're going to save a spot for Notre Dame. They're not just adding anybody. You can forget about NC State. You can forget about Virginia or Virginia Tech. You can forget about Georgia Tech. I've heard all of this bullshit. You can forget about Miami. They'll fill the spot with Florida State, or they'll just wait. They're at 18 teams. They're in no hurry. They don't have to be. They're making all the money they need. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They give a shit about Notre Dame. That's the big fish. The only big fish for the Big Ten. If they can get another decently sized fish like a Florida State, then they'll do that. And this talk, well, if they get Notre Dame, then they'll take Stanford. No, they won't take Stanford. That's another stupid take. I'm tired of hearing that take. No, they won't. They won't take Stanford. Get it through your heads. The Big Ten will never take Stanford under any circumstances, with or without Notre Dame. No, they won't. They've had every opportunity to snatch up Stanford, and they didn't do it. They're not going to do it. They don't have to do it. So, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Oregon and Washington made sense. Great brands who provide premium matchups, big ratings. Virginia didn't provide that, nor does Stanford. Stanford can't even fill their own freaking stadium. I mean, not even half. A quarter. Can they get to a quarter of that stadium? My God. And the SEC. I think they have a ton of interest in Florida State and a ton of interest in Clemson. Why? Because of all the damn matchups. That's why. That's why. And what am I hearing? Oh, well, you want to get into Carolina because of all the recruiting. You're telling me the SEC can't recruit Carolina? Any of the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina? Of course they can. They do right now. They recruit in California. They ain't got nothing in California. They don't need a team in Carolina, in North Carolina, to recruit North Carolina. Are you kidding me? Alabama recruits anywhere they want to. So does Texas. So does A&M. So does Georgia. Good God Almighty. You're talking about the biggest football conference in the land. They recruit anywhere. If there were teams in Africa, they'd be recruiting there. Canada, Mars, doesn't matter. Titan, they recruit everywhere. They don't need a team there. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous point. And look, once in a while, I go on the Big 12 Mafia show. Great show, like I said. I have a blast every time I go on there. It's fun. I like making some people chuckle. But I want to bring that up to Mr. Bomber. We're going to have us a little go round. Because I'm sorry, as a Big 12 fan, Clemson coming to the Big 12 is absolutely stunningly devoid of logic, reason, or facts. It's just ridiculous. I would love it. But it's not even a pipe dream. It's just an impossibility. It'll never happen. It's too big of a brand. It has too much value. It has a ton of value for the SEC. That's why they're going to that they will take them in Florida State. That's going to be part of those two schools being able to pay their way out of the ACC because they're going to owe ESPN a shit ton of money leaving the ACC. That's going to be part of negotiating that price down. Is that they will continue to be ESPN products, but now in the SEC. Oh, I know. Florida State, they can't stand ESPN. They got screwed over by ESPN. Blah, blah, blah. The Big 12 felt like they got screwed over by ESPN. Bob Bowlesby himself issued a cease and desist order to ESPN. Guess what? We re-upped with ESPN, the Big 12. Absolutely did. Didn't go to market, nothing. Didn't talk to a damn other person. We got an extension with ESPN and Fox. We didn't tell them to kick rocks or suck our ass because of what you did. No, we re-upped with them. This is business. It's business. And sure, Florida State feels some kind of way because ESPN did some business. And they were on the business end of that. Well, tough shit. Can't beat them, join them. You go to the SEC. Get paid. Paid in the SEC. And now if you go undefeated in that conference, guess what? Guess what? 12 teams. You're going to be a top seed. It ain't going to be shut out. You ain't going to be sitting at home. You ain't going to go to some lower bowl, some bullshit, New Year's Eve, whatever, when you should be in the playoff. No, you're going to be in the playoff. You're going to be the big dog in the playoff if you go undefeated in the SEC. I don't care if you've beaten people by 30 or by 2. If you're undefeated in the SEC, your ass is going to the very top. Top of the line, first of the line. Regardless, style win or no, it's a win. And they know that. And that's where Florida State's going. That's where Clemson's going. All this talk about, oh, well, Big Ten, go try to get, try to work something out with Florida State. No. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. They're going to try. I'm not saying they're not going to try. But the only way that deal getting out of the ACC is going to be able to work is with them staying with ESPN. And then look, if UNC wants to try it, if they got a road, I just have my doubts. Because like I said, in football, there's no premium matchup involving UNC. There isn't one. They're not a blue blood. They're not this huge brand in football. I know they got value, but let's be real. Florida State, Clemson both have showed the value they have to the ACC. They are responsible for most of the money that damn conference makes. That's why they're pissed, people. UNC, they make plenty of money for the conference. I'm not saying they don't. It ain't the same. They may think it is. You may think it is. A lot of people, remember back in the day, not that long ago, the Pac-12 was talking about an unequal revenue split where Oregon and Washington got the majority, got the biggest percentage of the TV contract. Remember who got the second highest in that scenario? That was supposed to be Stanford and Cal. Remember that? And then what happened? They got left behind, didn't they? Turns out they weren't as valuable as everyone seemed to think they were. All right? Fox didn't want any part of them coming to the Big Ten. The Big Ten just didn't want any part of them, period. At every opportunity. The Big 12 didn't want them. They only got to the ACC because the ACC was desperate. Because they knew Florida State and Clemson was going to be a massive freaking problem. And they're going to have to find a way to pave a way for those two teams to exit. And they need to bring in a couple power schools, P5 schools, even though they're Stanford and Cal, and all the way the hell on the other side of the world. There's the only way they could do that and keep their TV partners happy, or partner in ESPN. So yeah, that's all I got with that. It was, like I said, it just struck me as like, what in the hell is Bomber and Drake Toll talking about? That was crazy. I'm fans of both the guys, but it doesn't mean I have to agree. It doesn't mean I don't think they're completely insane talking seriously about Clemson coming to the Big 12. That was just, I mean, I can see a path for Miami. There is no path for Clemson. Let me be clear. There's no path for Clemson or Florida State. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye-bye.